jeez.
Power to make it
There
to the
we
top.
go.
Damn it, you're gonna kill him!
Welcome, legends. This is News in Rings, bringing you non-stop WWE news, match results, and inside scoops. Hit subscribe, and let's dive straight in. A hush swept across the wrestling world the night the Anoaʻi family's phone calls stopped sounding like industry updates and started sounding like prayers. What had at first been whispered rumors and missed appearances hardened into a grim truth. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who for years seemed to carry an entire era of sports entertainment on his broad shoulders, was suddenly not a storyline, but a patient, and his family was scrambling to hold together the pieces of a life that had always been both public and private. This is a human story, one about pride and silence, about a dynasty forced to reckon with vulnerability, and about a community learning in real time that the person they cheered as an invincible champion was, in the bleakest way, as fragile as anyone else. The silence falls. When the usual machine of PR and promotion went quiet, people noticed. In wrestling, absence is often a plot device, but this absence carried a different weight. No carefully timed social posts, no cryptic teasers, just a stifling stillness. Fans initially joked that it was another twist, another delayed payoff in a soap opera that trades in pain and triumph. But the more the silence persisted, the more unease spread. It's strange how quickly bravado peels away when real concern enters the room. A chokehold replaced by hands clasped. Fireworks traded for whispered updates. For a performer whose identity had been welded to spectacle, the lack of spectacle felt like an admission that something had slipped beyond control. The private crisis. Behind closed doors in a private hospital near Pensacola, the Reigns we thought we knew began to fade from the public frame into a more intimate, painful portrait. Months of unnoticed symptoms, fatigue, dizzy spells, blackouts, had built into a crisis no single interview, no viral clip could have foreshadowed. The diagnosis, shared in terrified, hushed tones among kin and caretakers, was described as aggressive and fast-moving. Family members spoke of organs struggling, immune systems betraying their host, and doctors urgently convening in hallways. Whether or not fans ever heard every medical detail mattered less than the sense that a man who had been expected to stand forever had fallen to the sort of failure no sparring partner or surgery could easily fix. The family vigil families hold different languages for grief. The Anoaʻi family used ritual, presence, and prayer. One by one they arrived. Uncles who once taught stamina with bare hands, cousins who had learned the business in basements and back alleys, children who had watched championship belts grow like family heirlooms. The hospital room turned into a living room of memories and murmured faith. Elders telling old stories, younger men pacing and cursing softly, mothers and grandmothers making quiet, protective gestures. It was less a boardroom of decisions than a chapel of waiting. They clasped hands, shared tears, and made plans that had nothing to do with contracts. Who would hold the kids? Which family recipes to send? What stories to whisper if the end came? In that vigil, fame was irrelevant. What remained was kinship. The medical reality medical conversations are brutal in their plainness. Stabilizations, dialysis, experimental treatments, risks and probabilities. Specialists arrived, machines hummed, teams argued about options late into the night. For a man who had been built into myth, the cold arithmetic of medicine was an unwelcome translator of mortality. Even so, the family moved through the clinical choreography with a fierce, loving stubbornness, advocating for treatments, shuttling between consultations, refusing to reduce their nephew to a chart number. The doctor's language precise and unromantic, cut through the drama. There are no guarantees. There are chances. There are stages of care. For everyone in the room, that clinical vocabulary was a new dialect to learn quickly. The cultural weight Roman was more than a headline. He was a bridge between cultures. For Samoan communities far from the glare of stadium lights, he was family, a living emblem of ancestral pride. Traditional rites were organized, elders chanted and lit torches. Those scenes of ritual offered a different kind of solace than hospital halls, a reminder that identity runs deeper than fame, and that community can be medicine. At the same time, global fandom created a parallel public ritual, vigils, murals, and hashtags that turned private grief into a shared moment. The juxtaposition of ancient ceremony and modern fandom highlighted how one man's crisis could resonate across very different worlds. The personal letters. Among the deepest notes left behind were not press statements, but personal writings. A short, frantic journal entry admitting exhaustion. A folded note to a child signed, "Love, Daddy." A half-finished promo scribble that read, like a promise. Those fragments exposed the private negotiations one makes when identity and duty clash. The father who wanted to be present. The performer who felt compelled to perform. The nephew who carried his lineage like armor. Fans who saw these notes were struck not by celebrity, but by kinship. Here was the same mixture of tenderness and turmoil any family would recognize, a reminder that beneath the spectacle lies a very human interior life. The global response support poured in from unexpected places. Competitors offering solidarity, former rivals sending prayers, public figures quietly leveraging private connections to help. The Rock's simple, unadorned message captured a complicated feeling, sameness across rivalry, and stirred millions. It's a curious thing to watch industries that thrive on conflict suddenly join in compassion. The shared humanity cut across TV angles and contract clauses, exposing how little any scripted feud mattered next to a person's life. That global chorus of concern became a daily comfort to the family, if not a cure. Proof that Roman's life had touched people in ways far beyond entertainment. The reckoning grief has a way of turning into questions, and those questions can demand institutional change. Conversations shifted from condolence bands to accountability. Did the culture of endurance in the business silence legitimate pleas for help? Were warning signs missed because of mythology? Was an industry that applauded toughness inadvertently complicit in hiding weakness? These were not accusations so much as a hard, necessary self-examination, a reckoning that families, colleagues, and executives knew could not be postponed. For many, the crisis became a call to change how performers are protected, how fatigue is acknowledged, and how care is prioritized over continuity. The uncertain road ahead. The medical prognosis remained fragile, and whatever recovery came would be slow and partial at best. Even if the worst was averted, the idea of returning to the ring, of stepping back into bright lights and thunderous crowds, felt different. The priorities had shifted from championship retentions to hospital bed conversations. The family began to talk about legacy in a new register. Not belts and headlines, but stories, recipes, and the small, quiet rituals that keep a lineage alive. There is a bravery in redefining victory, in choosing presence over performance, and that, perhaps, is the truest inheritance a public figure can leave. Conclusion. In a world built on spectacle, Roman's crisis forced everyone who watched to remember a simple truth. Fame does not inoculate against fragility. The Anoaʻi family, long a symbol of strength, now waits with hands clasped and voices low. Their vigil has become a mirror for an industry and for fans, an invitation to replace applause with care, to value words like, "I'm not okay," and to measure success not in title belts, but in how we gather when the very people we idolize need us most. Whatever comes next, that lesson will be the quiet, enduring legacy of this dark, human moment.